Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. In this video I will cover some macro developments in the Ukraine war. One of them is the Russians claim a Ukrainian pilot with his gear, which is an airplane, fighter jet, surrendered to the Russians. Now I wonder if in Kursk region, I wonder if that pilot, the Ukrainian pilot, was flying an F-16 or a Sukhoi or a MiG. I have two articles about that one. Then we find out that the mood and the rhetoric changed in the West towards having a strategic inflicting, as I say, a strategic defeat on Russia. Russia must lose, Ukraine must win. They changed the tone. Even the Ukrainians come a little bit more flexible or show a little bit of flexibility, and they say that they could agree, the Ukrainians could agree to non-NATO security guarantees. But there's a caveat over there, which is, again, is going to be unacceptable for the Russians. Even Medvedev, Lavrov comes out and says, you know what? Russia is ready for Ukraine talks. But, and that but changes everything. Now that kind of a but, you want to find out therefore. You see, the Germans, again, come to their senses slower because, slow. Ein Mann, ein Wort, you may remember. People familiar with German culture, they know what I'm talking about. Ein Mann, ein Wort. Anyway, not only that, German peacekeepers in Ukraine. They could be deployed in Ukraine, but I will let you know. Next one, Gazprom cut off gas to Moldova. Now, I know the Western operatives will tell you the Russians are inflicting an economic genocide on the Romanians, Moldovans, okay? And they will start the history, as always, somewhere in the middle on the chronology of events, okay? So now the Russians will stop their gas supplies to Moldova on the 1st of January. Why? Because the Russians are bad. There's gonna be or maybe, we don't know why. It's irrational. I have two articles on that. Now, we got a baboon, and this is again my mountain slope model. A baboon, a former something, which is a former US Defense Secretary, so he's not an official. He says maybe the Ukrainians should get that imbecile Iron Dome, the one that works so good for the Israelis against the Iranians' missiles. You remember? The propaganda here said 99% of them were downed, and the reality is that 100% of them were downed. All right, so we got this baboon saying that Ukraine should get the Iron Dome. These guys vând pielea ursului din pădure before it was hunted. So these guys are selling the bear's skin of the bear who's not hunted yet, who's still in the woods. They're like, I'm going to give you, they should get the Iron Dome. When? After you lose or now while you're losing? Again, the war is not over, but nevertheless. Russian troops liberate daily new territory. And I'm going to show you one town that they liberated. And then I'm going to talk about the North Korean soldiers who supposedly, according to NBC News, the Ukrainians and the Americans, only the guys from Bangladesh, the guys from my friends from Zimbabwe, the guys from Nicaragua, the guys from, 190 other countries don't tell us about. We have only two countries telling us about the North Korean troops fighting and boom themselves instead of being captured. After all, a witness, an uncomfortable witness, is the best witness when there's no witness. So we're going to talk about that one. And we're going to talk about the Buryats. You know what the Buryats are? I'm talking about who are the indigenous people of Russia. So when you find a North Korean dead on the front over there, you can say that's a North Korean. Looks to me like a North Korean. Could he look like a Buryat? We're going to talk about that one. I have about 25 indigenous ethnic groups in Russia that look, may I dare say it? All right, we're going to talk about the Buryats and others. And I'm going to talk about not only the Buryats, but how the Russians are using the Buryats in the fight against the West. So if you find one of those guys killed, how do you know he's not Korean? Genetically, you can't say that. His paperwork? Please. All right, so let's start with the beginning. Here it is. Ukrainska Pravda. Ukrainian Air Force denies Russian claims of Ukrainian pilots' surrender. What do you think? I think it's 100% possible, and I think it's about 98% probable. Why? There's no smoke without a fire, and I think the fire is there. And this is exactly what I've been talking about many times before. One of the main reasons why I don't think that the most advanced weapons delivered to Ukraine are not operated by the Ukrainians, are operated by the NATO member states who delivered those. So if a Patriot system was delivered by the Dutch, it's going to be Dutch people operating about 80 of them. All right, you need for a HIMARS. Or the HIMARS, donated by these guys, there's not the Ukrainians over there. F-16s donated by those guys is not going to be the Ukrainians. For this kind of reason, when a pilot decides to, I'm coming over Red Rover, I surrender. Or he just takes it to the Russians because, let's say, he likes the Russians. He's a traitor, which, under the laws of the war, he is a traitor. So he lands an F-16 clean and nice, or a HIMARS, or a Patriot 1, or battery. We don't have to get all those guys. Cross it towards the Russians. That would fuck these guys up. So that's one of the reasons why I don't think, one of the reasons why these guys are not giving the Ukrainians anything. They don't give the Romanians. What are you talking about? Give the Ukrainians. Romania is a NATO controlled and occupied. And they give Ukrainians who are just, we don't know who they are. Russian propagandists say that the pilot of the armed forces of Ukraine has surrendered in Russia's Kursk Oblast. That is exactly here. All right, this is Ukraine, this is Russia, this is Belarus. All right, they have a name too. The Russians even mentioned the pilot's name. Volodymyr Zelensky Popovich. Okay, Mr. Popovich must be Romanian. I'm just saying. Now, do you remember, and if you don't, I'll let you know. Wasn't it in 1961, I think it was, when a American spy plane, U-2 or whatever it was, it flew, I think there were two. One in far east of Russia, and the other one was some from Pakistan coming from the south, from the Caucasus area. Caucasus. And it looks Caucasian to me. It's not my child. Anyway, so what happened over there? It got shot down by a Russian interceptor. The Russians could not hit those U-2. So I don't think it was U-2, but anyway, it was the spy planes. The Americans were flying very high altitude, and the Soviets, did I say Russians? If I say Russians, I deserve at least one punch in my balls, okay? At least from you. That's the Soviets. So if I say Soviets, give me a medal. Why? Because that's the accurate word that we should mention. It was not the Russians, it was the Soviets, all right? But nevertheless. So I think it was 1961, okay. Oh my God, Freud, what are we doing here? So they shot down this. They were flying so high, these guys could not hit them with any missiles, and their airplanes, the interceptors, could not get close to them. But the Soviets designed an interceptor that flew, and the Americans were saying, we don't spy, we don't go over the Soviet territory whatsoever, blah, 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 blah. But they were. The Soviets knew they were. But what can you do? And then you had the propaganda. So the Soviets built this interceptor who got very high in the air and then shot it down with a missile. Boom. And the pilot, I think it was one, from this spy plane, ejected. And in the Soviets' arms. And the Soviets took him like this, slapped him around, got the information, and they said, we got a American spy plane captured. And the Americans said, it disappeared, but we don't know what happened. No, we don't spy. And then what the Soviets do? They put these guys on the television. They gave his name, the television right there, and Americans were caught with the pants down. And then it was second Vienna meeting between Khrushchev and, I think it was the second one, between Khrushchev and JFK was cancelled. Got that? So I think the Russians now, not the Soviets, are having the right person over there. Now, do I think that could be a made-up thing? Yeah, it could be. And I'm quoting, Russian propaganda media are spreading information that the Ukrainian pilot has surrendered in Kursk Oblast. All right, it doesn't say here. Or Ukrainian pilots continue to perform tasks, defend the country. Not all, sometimes, things happen. Pilots are a very important combat unit in armies. It takes months and years to train them, as well as huge sums of money. So are the spies and other people who, go to the enemy. Now, I don't see here, they portray here, this is Kiev Independent, and this is I can identify this as, I think it's a Sukhoi, but I can't really tell from this one. But nevertheless, it's not a F-16. Could it be an F-16? I don't see anything saying. But again, Russia claims Ukrainian pilots surrendered in Kursk Oblast. Ukraine denies. And I'm trying to find out here, all right, they don't say surrendered with what? With a plane, without a... However, the information about the capture of a Ukrainian pilot is false. All Ukrainian pilots continue to perform tasks to protect the country. Okay, all right, make believe. Next one. Ukraine could agree to non-NATO security guarantees. So this guy, Melnik, who's the Kiev's EU and United Nations ambassador, has said that securing commitments from Western backers is the nation's top priority now. But Ukraine could agree to non-NATO security guarantees, but he says that they will never cut ties with NATO, and in the future Ukraine will join NATO, which is a non-negotiable in the Russians' eyes. So they said, well, we might agree to this and that, but eventually it's going to be NATO. It's like I say, I'm not going to touch your wife, but eventually I will. Okay? Just kidding. All right, let's move to the next one. You like my examples? All right, here it is. Sputnik, Russia ready for Ukraine talks, but they must include situation on ground. What does that mean? We have 4 reasons, main reasons why we had to get off our lady, get off the bed, get outside and smack you. All right, you got me off that. And now you got me off and you want me to do what? Stop before catching you. Now I'm going to catch you. I'm going to ruffle you up a little bit. And the next time you will not come closer and bother us. So the same, the Russian says, no. You made us come over, Red Rover. We're going to have a little bit of scratches here and there. We have 4 reasons, main reasons why we will accomplish all of them. And then we're going to negotiate about other things. Like, I don't know, we're going to change the Monday to Tuesday, like details, not important stuff. Ukraine will be controlled by the Russians. I can tell you a percentage, but NATO will have nothing in Ukraine unless NATO somehow does something where it just comes from the west, from Poland, and invades like the Wehrmacht did with the Soviets, with Trotsky's army, Red Army. Trotsky made the Red Army. Trotsky was the first. Trotsky was Mr. Bronstein. Yeah, he's Jewish. It's okay. All right, so they're gonna do the partition of Ukraine like they did the partition of Poland über niemals. All right, so the same will include the situation on the ground. That is the same as Stalin told the imbecile Harry Truman. When Harry Truman met, I can remember, it was Potsdam, I think, after the war, and they were deciding Stalin, the Georgian, he was not Russian, Georgian, okay? Mr. Djugashvili is his name, just so you know. So when you say the Russians, that's why you should not say the Russians, because you have the Bronsteins, you have the Kaganoviches, you have the Yogodas, you get the Bronsteins again, you have the Stalin, who is man of steel, you got even Lenin, who is Mr. Ulyanov. Lenin's name is Ulyanov. He was Russian as I am Jewish, right? Anyway, so here it is. He was a little bit Russian, just a tiny. So Stalin, Mr. Djugashvili, Truman told Mr. Djugashvili, the Pope, the Roman Catholic, the Pope, is a little bit concerned with the Polish minority, right? I'm concerned that when you take over, when we give you Poland, because that's how they did it, the good people gave Poland to the bad people, so you are bad as well. So gave Poland to the Soviets. Said, the Pope is a little bit concerned. They want to pray and they want to, all that. Stalin asked, can you tell me how many divisions, military divisions, does the Pope have in Poland? And Truman was like, my pussy hurts. Why? Stalin was real. He was talking in terms of reality, which is power. You see, why should I care about that guy when I have divisions in Poland? Poland is under my thing. So the same here. Why should the Russians talk to these guys when they have the upper hand? And they will have the upper hand. They will not talk to these guys at all. It's going to be about power, how much you conquer. Yeah, you don't conquer anything, you negotiate. You are strong, you don't have to negotiate. Look at the Americans. They don't have to negotiate, and they expect everybody to agree with that. Let's move on. Let's talk about the peacekeepers, the German peacekeepers. New voice of Ukraine. German peacekeepers in Ukraine only possible with Russia's consent. Thank you very much. This is a sober guy, Merz. But I don't know if he says this just because there are elections now, because Friedrich Merz, the candidate for the German chancellorship and leader of the opposition Christian Democratic Union, communist, said Germany's participation in a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine is contingent on reaching an agreement with Russia, Die Zeit reported on December 29. That is, Russia will take control, and when they allow us to show up, they allow us. Until then, we're going to still try to take care of Putin, like NATO did with, what's his name? Gaddafi. And when we lose, then we have to ask for permission. Until then, all right, we're coming over. So, that's another one. Next one, let's see. When you're going to hear about the poor Moldovans, the Romanians, not receiving gas from the evil Russians, remember, the Moldovans did not pay for it. That is, let's say you have your electricity provided, or the gas, from a provider. And let's say you don't pay for about, 5 years. And then those guys tell you, hey, you gotta pay. And you don't pay, but you receive gas. And after 5 years, Gazprom, or whatever your supplier is, says, time's up, boy, we're off, done. And you say, I'm gonna sue you. You didn't pay, motherfucker. What are you talking about? I understand, Gazprom is a state-owned company by Russia. I understand that partly, whatever it is. It's a war over there. Moldova talks smack because it's pushed by the NATO, Americans, and so on. Because if there will be no NATO, Moldova will be a very, very good neighbor to Russia. I guarantee you. The same with the Baltic states and the Poland. The Polish with Poles in Poland will be all nice. But because those guys over there push them, like the Brits pushed them in the Second World War, don't negotiate with the Germans. If they attack you, we are going to come and save you. And they saved Poland very much. Gave it to the Soviets. Good job. Instead to the evil Nazis, you got to the evil Soviets with Bronsteins and all those guys. Good job. Bronstein was gone by that time. It was just Jugashvili. Just. All right, so let's see this little article. Man, it's too much to talk about. Too much. I like it. Gazprom to cut off European states' gas on January 1st. The Russian energy giant is citing Moldova's multi-million historical debt. You didn't pay? Why would we give you that? Russian energy giant Gazprom announced on Saturday it would halt natural gas supplies to Moldova from January 1st, citing the country's refusal to pay debts. Moldova, a former Soviet state, a former province of Romania, before it was taken by the Jugashvili, Stalin, and given to partitioned and part given to Ukraine and made a Soviet state that relies heavily on Russian gas, has racked up an estimated 709 million in debt. There's no big deal. The Americans can print some dollars and give to the Russians, or the guys could lend them some of the Russian assets receipts. Remember the frozen assets, $300 billion worth? Yeah, they give to the Ukrainians $50 billion in trenches, unless the Russians are going to fuck them up before that happens. That's democracy, freedom, capitalism for you. Anyway, if you have a problem with that, tell me what is the problem between US and Russia in Ukraine? I thought it was between Ukraine and Russia only. It was not about the United States of Russia, is it? And if you have a problem with that, look Please take this or look over the map and see where Ukraine is. It's not like Baja California or by New York or something like this. No, 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 no. It's next to Russia. Who came over there? The Russians or the Americans? Start with the chronology of events, with the beginning, and don't ignore evidence that you don't like. This is a poor investigative skill, ignoring that. That's corruption. I know one, I know more. A lot of investigators who are corrupt. And they go to prison, by the way, one by one. So, let me show you what this baboon says here. Ukraine needs its own Iron Dome. Former U.S. Defense Secretary says, Mr. Paleta, whatever his name is, Panetta, right? Panetta Institute, what's his name? Leon the Lion. He says here that it should be, because look, Israel's missiles defense system with intercepts over 90% of rockets launched by Iran and other states. Kiev must have the same capability. We should give more now. The goal is to enable Ukraine to regain its initiative in the war and to make Putin understand that he cannot succeed. For you, Panetta, Mr. Putin, okay? Fuck off. Why? It's about money. Where do you think Panetta works right now? Do you think Panetta is retired? Jerking off? I mean, he can, you know. What do you think he is doing right now? Who do you think he is helping with his knowledge and his connections? It's called somehow when you work for a company with the information. I can't remember the name, Jesus Christ. Do you have companies of this kind of garbage? You know, they're just helping you. It's a term, I can't remember. Sorry, you know exactly what it is. When you worked in a field and then you retired, and then you provide advice, economic, and you have connections. This is Panetta. By the way, Panetta was an appointed bureaucrat by our elected officials. And he makes lots of money. Like Lloyd Austin, our current defense secretary. He was a general, then he retired. He was picked and dropped on Raytheon board of directors, and then from there he was again appointed as a Secretary of Defense of America. This is how democracy is. Fuckers. Anyway, let's go and see what the Russians are saying about their latest successes. Russian troops liberate Novotroitskoye in Donetsk People's Republic. Where is that located? Exactly southwest of Pokrovsk. Where is Pokrovsk? Here is Ukraine, in Donetsk People's Republic, or Donetsk Oblast, however you want to name it. And this is Pokrovsk right here. This is where the Russians are going to go around Pokrovsk. This is Krasnoarmeysk, according to the Russians, and this little town of Bethlehem is right here. So the Russians occupied this one. So they moved this way and then... All right, so let's see. Novotroitskoye. Again, here it is, Novotroit. There's many of these, but it's the one right here because they also show it on... Look how close it is. And it's across the river. So that's bad for the Ukrainians, and that is, again, right here. This is it. And I'm going to go this way and down. All right, let's see. North Korean soldiers killed themselves to avoid capture in Ukraine. The United States says. What about, I want to see what Bangladesh says about this one. Well, I don't know, Zimbabwe. Why the United States? Why the United States? Do you think that these guys are telling the truth? They have an interest. It's like you get a witness on the stand and he is together with his boy or her boyfriend, let's say. Let's say the boyfriend is an investigator and let's say she's a whore. So how about that? You would believe the whore? Would you believe the investigator? No. So these guys, they're Americans and the Ukrainians. The Americans are with the Ukrainians. What do you think? They're going to say, no, that's incorrect. I want to hear the Germans. I want to hear the Romanians, even though the Romanians could be easily made. So, yeah, there is North Korean troops. Oh, don't hurt me. Exactly like that. So, North Korean soldiers killed themselves. Supposedly, they captured a living North Korean over there, and he died. Why? An uncomfortable witness is best when he's... What's his name? The guy with the list, with the whatever island. What's his name, man? That guy who just committed suicide. It was the Zelensky Stein. Anyway, I can't remember his name. So nevertheless, the best witness is no witness if it's uncomfortable. But let me show you this. How do you know? Let's say you find a guy dead over there and he looks in a certain way. You can say, oh, he's a North Korean. But if right here. Let's look over these things. Who are the indigenous people of Russia? And they say here, of them, 41 are legally recognized. There are over 100 identified ethnic groups in Russia. It says here you say here, such as Sakha, Yakuts, Buryat, these are the ones that we're going to talk about, Komi, Kakas, and others. So these are the 24 larger ethnic groups that are, additionally, there are 24. So let's go to the, not like that, let's go and get to the Buryat, because that's the well-known. So these are the Buryats. So when you're going to find a Buryat like this, can you think that maybe is, I don't know if these guys have a picture, but I don't know, they provided one in the past. But you find a Buryat, don't you think if he's dead that he might look like me? Of course not. Of course not. And these guys, look what articles I found. Russian ethnic minorities bearing brunt of Russia's war. So they fight over there. What's that? Buryatia suffers high casualty rate, according to the baboons. CBS, garbage, Canadian, right? Or what it is. And then you have Russians withdraw Buryat troops from Severodonetsk because, again, June 10, 2022. This is Yahoo Tralala, Buryat. So, when these guys are going to find a dead Buryat, they can say it's not Korean or maybe a South Korean. How do you know? My friends. I had a conversation yesterday. Was it yesterday? I think yesterday with someone, and that person said, we're talking about an article, and I said, I think it was the same about North Koreans, and I said, they're lying. And the person said, how do you know they're lying? I said, because it's only statements. Where's the evidence? And the person was like, what do you mean? But I said, it's like I tell you, I've been to the moon yesterday, and I came back. What would be your first question? Do you have any evidence? The same, I can make statements how many I want. I flew yesterday. I went to Tel Aviv and I spoke with Netanyahu. All right? So evidence, they all can say shit. And then don't get fooled when they say anonymous sources or they say people familiar with the issue or with the matter. These things for me are discarded. Even if they mention names. Remember, the Pentagon, the CIA showed up and told us that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and mobile chemical laboratories. They said it. Names. The baboon, what's his name? General, four-star General Colin Powell showed up at the United Nations and presented the facts. Did they find them? So even if, when someone says something, first ask this. Is it true? And the next one is, how do you know it's true? Give me the evidence. So again with these guys, when they tell me that, oh, the North Koreans are fighting over there, might be. I need evidence. Before I see the evidence, I don't really care. I don't believe it. Unless you and I, we built a trustworthy or trustful connection. That means you didn't catch me lying, I didn't catch you lying. That means we're clean. All right? If we build this kind of relationship, or maybe I never lied to you, let's put it nicely, for a certain segment of the society, and you never told me a lie. That's it. Do you think we all lied in our lives? Guarantee you that. All right? You just pick your situations. I never lied here. Never. Why? Why would I? The truth is the best lie. The truth is, if you have the truth, if you see what's going on over there, yeah, sometimes you pick and choose, but when you make a point, that's weasel. You know, when you try to make a point and you pick only what fits for your supporting your point, the evidence, that means you're a weasel. I try not to fall in this category, but sometimes most of the time, all the time I would say, but I refrain from saying all the time, never, and so on. You never loved me. You always say that, that part of this. Okay. So, right. Most of the time, we don't know everything about anything. We know parts. And from time to time, you get more information, and then you might, with the new evidence that you find by doing research, by listening, by putting effort into it, you can change the whole perspective. That's why sometimes you say socialism is good, but when you get and start working, you realize socialism is not good, but you want capitalism. And when you work harder, you're going to realize that the capitalism these guys is selling to us is not capitalism. It's actually a socialism for them and a wild capitalism for us. That is like that. It's a, sometimes, they connect or whatever. Here is, my friends, here is. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just. See you later.